Okay, I want to continue my lecture on piece activity, and hopefully I'm doing an okay job explaining it, which I break down into piece mobility, which I am saying the two most important factors for determining the mobility of the pieces is the pawn structure and center control, and then the last element is coordination. So let me try to show you another example of maybe the pawn structure as it relates to piece mobility. So this is actually a Queen's Indian opening. You can tell from the pawn structure here that, let's look at the bishops first. Obviously, both of the white bishops have been fianchettoed. Here, this bishop lays along the long diagonal here, and this was on purpose for white. So when it had made this original pawn move in the opening, it was going to place its bishop here. So where it would help control actually these two squares. And then black put its light squared bishop here. So just by the pawn structure of moving this pawn up and doing a fianchetto of the bishop, you know where the bishop's going to go. And then, like for black, and when it moved e6, it opened this diagonal for the bishop. I mean, obviously it's not going to move that the square will be captured, but now we know that its mobility is going to lie along this line. So where is it going to, be? But so its bishop is going to be active now because it has an open line. And then how about for the knights? Well, knights need advanced posts. If we go to white, this knight here is already centralized. I mean, it'd be ideal if it's maybe, one of these two squares, but it is centralized. So reaching some of its maximum potential, and, it has the possibility of going here. And then after that, maybe trying to bounce into to this square over here or something. These are ideas, not that it necessarily needs to be like that. But we can see how it has these possible moves. It isn't locked into where it can move. And then for this bishop, knight here, it can obviously maybe move to here at a later time. So we're looking for advanced posts of where to put the knights. And one of them, what are the candidates? Well, I'm looking at these squares here for the knights, and they can move there. For black, or an earlier move, if you would have looked at this game, it actually had moved the knight from here and the two here, so brought the knight to this outpost here. And then this knight here is actually probably functioning more as a defensive role, sort of like the white counterpart here. And then for the rooks, the most mobility, well, obviously white has the half-open file here, and black has the half-open file here. So that's where I would want to place its rooks. So my point is, by looking at how the pawn structure is, for white, how we had this fianchettoed position, it told us where to put the white bishop. White had previously moved the pawn here, freeing the black bishop. For black, it had fianchettoed the white bishop because it had made this pawn move. And by playing e6, it told us where to sort of put the black bishop. Okay, now let me talk about piece mobility, or not mobility, but coordination. So the other important factor is the pieces need to be working together towards a common goal. If the pieces aren't working together, then they're not really useful. You can have maybe some high degree of mobility, but without them working together, the mobility doesn't really mean much if they're not working towards a common goal. And what I mean by common goal, well, that common goal can be attacking an enemy piece or a pawn, protecting your own piece or pawns, attacking the same squares, things like that. And let me see if I can find an example of coordination. Okay, I paused my recorder and found a game, and actually, with this one, the first games that came to mind is it's Paul Morphy versus Duke Carl and the Count of Izzard. Hopefully, I'm saying those names right. It's a pretty famous game, and not only does this show, how to keep your pieces active, or it shows Paul Morphy playing white, but it also shows sort of a lack of development, which hopefully I'll cover later. But the game started out by, these are the opening moves. It's a Philidor's defense. This move d6 is a Philidor's defense by black. And I'm not going to cover too much about some of the moves. So now white is obviously threatening to capture the pawn on f7 there. Now the queen moves twice, but once again threatening to capture the piece. So now black makes this move, and now this piece, the black piece here, is not mobile. And obviously the king's, I guess it could castle sometime later, but that would make this piece pretty much not as effective anymore, even though the queen was developed to protect the pawn. Now Morphy develops another piece. Obviously for white, these two pieces look pretty active, and this bishop also here has a pretty active diagonal here. So these pieces are pretty active, and this queen actually attacks this pawn. So you can see how, and white can castle, and look at black's piece is not very active now. Black makes the move c6, actually probably protecting this pawn here. But now black can't. It could move. It sort of took away the best developing square for its knight here. It would like to have moved its knight here, but now the only move it has available is to d7. So Morphy develops the bishop, pinning the knight. Now b5, and now actually Morphy sort of sacrifices the knight for two pawns, but makes his bishop here very active, attacking the king. I know I'm supposed to be going in the coordination. The coordination will come in a little bit later, or you can see that the pieces together are acting, as before the bishop and the queen were attacking a single goal, or performing a common purpose. So black plays knight on b to d7, and now white castles long and attacks the knight again. And obviously this knight here is really pinned, so it's threatening to win the knight, so black has to defend. So black's pieces aren't very active if you really think about it. This and the rook now here is tied down to defense of the knight, and this knight can't move because it's pinned, and this queen here is sort of pinned down to defense. Or you can say this knight here can't move because it's pinned, and this bishop can't move, and this rook can't really move anywhere. If you look at black, it really has no moves, where white has very active pieces that can move around. And now white takes the knight. It looks like you're saying, "Oh, I just lost a rook for a knight." Wow. But we'll see the end. Has to recapture. Now white brings in the other rook. So now it's threatening to win this rook. because it can't recapture with the knight because it's pinned. So black tries to free the queen, also somewhat freeing the bishop. But now the end comes for black. Get quick into this video. So takes, white takes, the knight takes, queen sacrifice, and checkmate. Hopefully you can tell how all the pieces for white were actively working together, and that's what I mean by coordination. Not only are they active, but they're working together for a common cause.